Well, the fabulous new album by Danny Bryant, Rise, will be released on the 29th of September. I will put a purchasing link just below this video. If I'm not mistaken, you're just about to go out on tour as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's actually well, we've been doing summer festivals, so it's been flying in and out. I'm flying again in the morning, but yeah, when the album's released on the 29th, then we've got a long tour. We've got some dates in the UK, and then we go to Europe
Germany.
for 6 weeks. Yeah, six weeks, cover Holland and Switzerland and Germany, and then it carries on in the new year. So it's all on the website. I can't remember all the
Yeah.
dates.
Pretty exhausting stuff. I mean, totally unrelated note, Bernie Marsden, passing of Bernie Marsden. That was sad, wasn't it?
Very sad. He was a good friend of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, great guitarist. I mean, I was a big fan of those early Whitesnake records, to be honest with you. But and I
Mm.
saw him at the Rambling Man Fair a few years ago. He was absolutely great.
Yeah, he was fantastic, and such a lovely guy. And yeah, he recorded on one of my albums, and we used to jam and everything. He was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. First question really is what is the significance of the title Rise? I mean, you had an album called was it Rage to Survive or something like that? You got Rise.
Yeah.
Is there any significance behind the actual naming of this album?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like after the Rage to Survive, which was like the pandemic and everything, and then I got divorced going through that. So this was kind of me finding myself again. So it was like, a positive title because I was starting to feel positive again.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's really, and that's kind of the theme that runs through it with things like Into the Slipstream and certainly with Rise and Animal in Me. And so it's kind of like a more positive, upbeat album.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So I have to cough a
I,
bit of hay fever really badly today.
really, I suffer terribly with hay fever in June.
Do
Just
you?
it's what they call grass pollen season, and then when that passes, time you get July, August, it's all gone. So it's just 1 month I have to suffer. It must affect you if you're a singer. I mean, how does that must sort of be a
It doesn't really, but it doesn't seem to affect the singing, but it's just like having a bad cold.
yeah, I suppose so. The track Louise is one of the most beautiful numbers on this album. What was the inspiration for that song?
Well, that is like a divorce breakup song.
Mhm.
Um, but people, some people thought, oh, maybe it was cruel, but a lot of the lines I'm singing at me, not at the person. So it's kind of me looking at the things I did wrong, and also vice versa. So it's a breakup song.
Okay, okay. I mean, I was interested. You got Ian Dowling to produce this album. He'd worked with Katie Tunstall, Catfish and the Bottlemen, Kasabian, to name but a few. I mean, what was it like working with him?
Great, absolutely fantastic. He'd engineered one of my albums, so we sort of became friends. So I knew I could work with him, and so we met up. I played him the songs very basically, just me and him in a room, him and I, and with the one we met 2 or 3 times, and then he said, "Yeah, I think we've got a record," and so we went in and did it, and it was great. I wanted to make an album that was blues, but was had a modern, fresh approach. Someone that could do that for me.
Yeah,
And he was the guy for the job, I think.
yeah, yeah. You've appeared on the bill with some pretty big names over the years. I mean, I've got Carlos Santana, Buddy Guy. I wonder if any of these guys offered you some friendly advice, or did you get to rub shoulders with any of them? Any
Yeah, I met them all. No advice really. Just those sort of guys with that much talent. They're all just so very humble, very shy off stage,
yeah,
very friendly. Santana was just like the nicest person. He was very sort of spiritual. There was kind of like an aura around him that you could almost feel, which I've not really felt of anybody like that before. Buddy Guy was great. He he drank a lot of brandy.
yeah,
Uh, and yeah, they've all been nice. I've not had any negative experiences that I can think of.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to see. I've never actually gotten around to seeing Santana. I'd love to. It's one of the things I need to do. These people aren't getting any younger, of course. But
No.
what does it mean to you to have endorsements from people like Joe Bonamassa and Walter Trout? And who are your musical heroes?
Well, they are. Some of those are. What does it mean? I mean, it means the world, but also you don't really see it as yourself. I can't explain that. I sort of remove myself from it because I think, no, they can't really be talking about me. Um, so, or I think, oh, they're just being kind or something like that, So, but yeah, it means the world. But musical heroes, well, obviously Walter, and Joe, I have a massive respect for him. And but I love, the big one for me was BB King as well, and Buddy Guy, and Clapton, and Otis Rush, Albert Collins. The list is just endless for me.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm a big fan of Clapton's work on John Mayall's Blues Breakers. I think that's wonderful stuff. Especially that famous Beano album.
Yeah,
It's such a great record.
it's a benchmark album.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. Interestingly, I think when Clapton joined the Yardbirds, he was very unhappy when they had a hit with the song "For Your Love" because he felt it
Yeah,
was
that's why he
commercial.
left, actually. Yeah, because Keith Hartley wanted to go in a kind of a pop direction, and Clapton was out of there after that.
Yeah,
And I think they did that. The B side to that was an instrumental, which was kind of their way of trying to keep him. Like, oh, you can put a bit of blues on the B side of For Your Love.
yeah.
But he'd already moved on, and then he went to John Mayall, and then, well, we know, then there was Cream and everything. But yeah, the list goes on.
Yeah,
Varied career for sure.
absolutely, absolutely. Scarlet Street is another interesting one. I mean, what's the inspiration behind that song?
I actually, when we had a gig. I can't remember which city it was in. But I went back to the hotel and wrote it. We had an early gig, finished early, and a couple of us walked out to try and find some, like a bar to get a beer or something. And we went through like a red light district. I just saw this lady, and she just looked so defeated.
Yeah,
Um, but she had a kind of a beauty about her. But it was like, I read a quote from Bob Dylan that said she had a beauty, but it wasn't for this world.
wow.
And I'd carried that quote in my head a lot. It kept playing on me. So I went back to the hotel. I never did speak to her or anything, but I went back to the hotel and I wrote that.
It's wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah,
You cited Bob Dylan. Are you a huge fan of his Bobness?
absolutely, massively, yes.
Yeah, me too. I mean, out of all the songs you could have covered, what appealed to you with the song "I Want You"?
What happened was is we were talking about bootlegs and the bootleg series and things like that, and we Mark and I, who's playing guitar on the album, playing rhythm guitar, and we were sitting. He's a big Bob Dylan fan as well, and I said, "Oh, you should hear this." And I'd found a version. It's since disappeared off YouTube, which is a shame. But I found a version that they did for MTV Unplugged,
Oh yeah,
and it had that kind of arrangement. And I thought, oh, it's gone from what inspired me about it was because his life had changed over the years. When he recorded that on Blonde, it was like
mhm.
a young, hopeful kind of song. I want you, I want you. And
Yeah,
then when it got to the MTV Unplugged era, it was like a desperate, I want you. And it really appealed to me. And Mark kept bugging me saying, we got to record that. I was like, there's so many words to it, though. And he said, I'll get the studio to print them out for you. Excuse me. And so I said, okay. So we had like, normally you've got one lyric sheet in the vocal booth. We had like 1, 2, 3, 4, one on the floor.
yeah,
But so I'm gonna do it live, but I'm still trying to remember all the words. Guilty Undertaker size alone. Yeah, I can, I'm getting there, but
I'm always reminded of a story. Billy Joel, he met Bob Dylan, and he said to Bob Dylan, "How do you remember all those words?" And Bob Dylan pulled out of his bag the Bob Dylan songbook, which was so.
yeah.
There you are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, and I think he's so revered, and there's something so mystical about him that if he got the words wrong, people would just think he was reinventing himself.
Well, it's. I mean, I saw him way back on the Oh Mercy tour, which must have been about '89, and he rearranges his classic songs so much as you sometimes don't even recognize them.
No,
Just almost as if they're just a continuous work in progress. But interesting with this song, "I Want You," it fits in quite nicely with the whole idea or theme of the album, doesn't it? With Riot
yeah,
being kind of divorce album as well as you
yeah.
said, I think. Who was better in your opinion, Jeff Healey or Steve Ray Vaughan?
Um, I don't like to get into the better because it's not like a boxing match where one person knocks someone out. So you
Who
could
do you
say
prefer then?
that Steve Ray Vaughan, but I love I love Jeff Healey. I thought he had great songs.
Yeah,
I thought Jeff Healey had better songs than Steve Ray Vaughan.
yeah. Both lost them both tragically young.
Yeah,
Well, both. I mean,
yeah.
Jeff Healey not so long ago. I think. I think
2000, 2005, I think.
it wasn't that long ago. 2005.
It might have been 2015.
That's
I'm
it.
not sure. It's probably how quickly time marches on.
Well, it
I
does. It
have to
seems
look that up.
certainly as you get older, the time seems just before you know 5 years has got behind you.
Yeah.
Uh, in terms of the guitar, who do you think made the bigger contribution to music? Would it have been Jeff Beck or Jimi Hendrix?
I think I'd have to say Hendrix
Hmm.
because anybody you stopped on the street would know of Jimi Hendrix. Maybe not everyone would know of Jeff Beck.
Hmm.
Who do I think was the better player? That would be an impossible question, but I'll try and answer it. I'd probably say Jeff Beck.
Hendrix was
Uh,
smacked out a lot of the time, wasn't he?
it's just if you took what Hendrix did when he what he if you took what Hendrix officially released, if you took those albums, um, they're polished and they're perfect. But there's been so many people before the family got involved and got the estate that released things where he's so off his head and out of tune and everything that it has tarnished some of his discography, shall we say? For
Yeah,
me,
yeah. It's off your album. Is it Julienne? Who's that? Who's that song for?
it's just a love song. It's just not nobody particular.
No. Okay, it's a wonderful album. I played it last night. One final question I have for you is how psyched are you about the prospect of a new Stones album?
Very. And I mean, what do you think of the new single? I loved it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, it's been the first thing they've done since Bigger Bang,
Yeah,
which
that
was
was a great album.
2005 or six, wasn't it? That
Yeah,
album came out, but
yeah, that was a
uh,
great album.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Uh,
I'm certainly looking forward to it. I'd be interested to know how much Charlie Watts actually plays on the album. I'm not sure how many tracks he actually plays.
there's if you go, I can't remember what website I went on, but you can find the press release, and it says all the titles of the songs, the track listing, and it says which ones are with Charlie Watts.
Okay.
There's some sessions from 2019 with him on there, and I think he's on about 4 or 5 songs.
Yeah, yeah. I hope.
So,
It's well, Jagger's teased the possibility of another album coming out quite soon after this one. Really, I don't know if
well, it
there's
could be that
much.
I heard rumors that they were in the studio like about 18 months, 2 years ago. Just online, I read things that they were in the studio. So it may have been, artists like that. They record so much material, and then they think, well, look at someone like Bruce Springsteen. He's already got 3 albums always on the go, ready to be released.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then, he's so prolific, he can just decide when he releases something and what he wants to tour with at the time.
Yeah, same with artists like Neil Young. They've got so much stuff in the can
Oh yeah,
they're just forgotten about. That just gets
yeah,
dusted off so many years later. I mean, in terms of Springsteen, there's apparently a version of the Nebraska album recorded with the band that
yes,
didn't
I
get
read that.
released. I'd love to hear that.
So would I, and it would be great, I think, with Springsteen if they did what they're doing with Dylan, like the official bootleg series.
Yeah, yeah. I should certainly be buying the new version of the Budokan, the Dylan one. They're releasing live at the
Yeah,
Budokan. There's like a 4 disc set, which I'll certainly be getting a copy of that. Anyway, let's just plug this album again. Danny Bryant, Rise. It's out on the 29th of September. Your tour begins on the 1st of October, so shortly
yes.
after. I will put links just below this video to check this album out, and also put a link to your website as well, so you can look at the tour dates. Danny, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Best of luck with this new album. I hope it sells loads and loads.
Well, no, thanks for having me on. It's really, really nice to speak to you.